I always thought raising children was an investment in love. That if you poured your soul into nurturing them, standing by them through scraped knees and broken hearts, they would remember. They would protect you, as you once protected them. I believed that, right up until the moment my 2 grown children looked me in the eye and told me to leave my own home. It wasn't even a heated argument. No shouting, no slammed doors, just a cold, calculated conversation over coffee. "Mom, you're getting older. This place is too much for you to handle," my eldest David said, exchanging a glance with his sister Lily. "We've been talking," Lily chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet, but her eyes sharp. "And we think it's time you move into assisted living. You'll be happier there." Happier. That word hit me like a slap, as if they were doing me a favor, as if abandoning the home where I had built every memory, every Christmas morning, every late-night tearful hug, was somehow for my benefit. Sat there, stunned, the mug shaking slightly in my hands. Had I missed something? Had I been such a burden that the only solution was to discard me like an old piece of furniture? And then came the clincher. "We've already made some calls," David said, sliding a pamphlet across the table. "And we've found a few nice places. They're ready when you are." That was when the world shifted beneath me. They weren't asking. They were telling. My own children were evicting me from the home I had worked myself to the bone to maintain after their father passed away. I stared at them, these 2 people I had once cradled in my arms, and for the first time, I saw them not as my babies, but as strangers. And the worst part? They thought they could get away with it. Because what David and Lily didn't know, what they had never even bothered to find out, was that the house they were so eager to seize wasn't under my name alone. It wasn't under their names at all. The walls of this house held more than just memories. They held secrets. Ones I had quietly prepared years ago, not out of distrust, but out of caution. Life had taught me that loyalty wasn't always forever. That sometimes, even the ones you loved most could forget everything you had given them. As I sat there, masking my rising anger with a weak, wounded smile, I realized something. They thought I was powerless. They thought they had won. Oh, how wrong they were. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting them believe they had me cornered, that I would obediently pack up my life and fade away. But inside, a fire had been lit. They had drawn the first strike. But the war? The war was just beginning. Over the next few days, the betrayal sank deeper, embedding itself like a splinter I couldn't pull out. David and Lily didn't waste any time. Without a hint of guilt, they began preparing for my departure, treating me like a guest whose welcome had long expired. Lily started boxing up my things, family photos, old books, even the blanket my mother had crocheted when I was born, stacking them neatly by the door as if to say, "Here's your life. Take it and go." David, ever the practical one, started meeting with real estate agents. I overheard him on the phone one evening, pacing the living room like he already owned the place. "Yeah, it's a prime property," he said, his voice low but unmistakable. "We're looking to sell fast. Cash offers only." Sell? They were planning to sell my home. The audacity left me breathless. They didn't just want me out. They wanted to profit off of my life's work. I retreated to my bedroom, my sanctuary, and sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling in my lap. The photos on the walls stared back at me. Birthdays, graduations, tiny footprints immortalized in dusty frames. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dream deferred so they could have a better life. Was this my reward? Part of me wanted to scream, to throw the boxes across the room, to demand they stop this madness. But another part, the wiser part, knew better. This wasn't just an emotional ambush. It was calculated. They had assumed I would be too shocked, too heartbroken, too old to fight back. They had weaponized my love for them against me, counting on my silence. And the worst part? If I didn't act carefully, they could legally bulldoze right over me. In the eyes of the world, They were the concerned children trying to help their aging mother transition into the next phase of life. Any resistance on my part would just make me look stubborn, even unstable. They had covered their tracks. Well, except for one fatal miscalculation. They didn't know the full truth about the house. Not about the updated deed. Not about the name they assumed was still mine, and mine alone. They didn't know that after their father died, when I was battling depression and loneliness, my sister, my fierce, brilliant sister, had urged me to take precautions. Don't ever leave yourself vulnerable, she had warned. At first, I thought she was being cynical, but as the years went by, and I saw marriages dissolve and families fracture over money and property, I understood. So I had listened. I had quietly added a name to the deed, someone I trusted with my life. A safeguard, a silent guardian. And now, staring at the boxes of my life, I realized that the safety net I had tucked away years ago wasn't just a precaution. It was a lifeline, a weapon, one I was going to use, but not yet. No, I would wait. I would let David and Lily believe they had won. Let them march ahead with their plans, drunk on their own greed, because when the truth hit them, it wouldn't be a gentle correction, it would be an earthquake. And for the first time in days, a small, fierce smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. If they wanted a war, they were going to get one. I didn't sleep much after that. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment that had led me here. What hurt the most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the casual cruelty of it. The way David and Lily spoke to me, as if I were a problem to be solved, not a person who had sacrificed everything for them. It made me question every bedtime story I read, every scraped knee I kissed, every night I sat by their beds praying they would grow up strong and kind. Had I failed them somehow? Had I loved them too much, not enough? The questions gnawed at me, but there was no answer that could justify what they were doing. And it wasn't just about me anymore. This home wasn't just a building. It was the anchor of our family's history. Their father and I had bought it together when David was still in diapers, when Lily was just a twinkle in our eyes. Every memory worth holding on to was etched into these walls. David's first bike ride in the driveway, where he skinned both knees and got back up laughing. Lily's high school prom pictures taken by the oak tree out back. Sunday dinners, birthdays, Christmas mornings, stormy nights curled up together by the fireplace. This wasn't just my home. It was our life. And now, my children, these two strangers wearing the faces of my babies, were ready to wipe all of that away for a quick payout. Their betrayal wasn't just a personal attack. It was a desecration of everything we had built together. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this was bigger than sentimentality. If they succeeded in throwing me out, if they sold the house, I would be at their mercy for everything. Where would I go? What would I do? A woman my age, starting over with nothing but a few boxes and a broken heart. Assisted living wasn't cheap. Apartments weren't welcoming. And no, I didn't have hundreds of thousands tucked away like they assumed. Raising two children on a single income after my husband died had drained most of my savings. Without this home, I was one bad month away from disaster. That was what made their actions so cruel. They weren't just stealing my house. They were putting my very survival at risk. They had turned my love into a weapon against me. And they didn't even blink. I knew I couldn't let them get away with it. Not just for myself, but for the woman I used to be. The woman who believed in family, in loyalty, in unconditional love. I owed it to her to fight back. And somewhere deep inside, under the heartbreak and exhaustion, a cold, clear resolve began to form. I would fight. Not with screaming or begging, not with tears or desperate appeals to their conscience. No, I would fight the way they would least expect. With cold, hard facts. With signatures on paper. With the quiet, devastating power of the truth. They thought I was weak. They thought I had no moves left to make. But I still had one card to play. And when I did, David and Lily would finally understand what it felt like to lose something they thought they owned. They had underestimated me, and that mistake was going to cost them everything. I spent the next 2 days pretending I was packing, pretending I was grateful for their help, pretending I was the frail, defeated woman they believed they had cornered. But behind my calm smile, I was preparing for war. I pulled out the old metal lockbox from the back of my closet, a box David and Lily had probably forgotten even existed. Inside was every important document I had ever saved: insurance papers, birth certificates, and most importantly, the updated deed to the house. The moment I held that paper in my hands, I felt my heart steady for the first time in days. There it was, in bold, irrefutable black ink. The house was owned jointly, between me and my sister, Margaret. Years ago, after my husband died, Margaret had insisted we protect my assets. "People change," she had said, "even your own blood." I had thought she was being paranoid. Now, I knew she had simply been wise. Legally, David and Lily had no claim over the house. None. Not unless both Margaret and I agreed to sell, and that was never going to happen. I could have ended it right then. I could have waved the deed in their faces, shattered their little fantasy, and sent them packing with nothing. But that would have been too easy. No. I wanted them to fully commit to their betrayal. I wanted them to reveal exactly how low they were willing to sink. So I stayed quiet and watched as they dug themselves deeper. David contacted a real estate agent to start the paperwork for listing the house. I heard him bragging over the phone about the big payday they were expecting. Lily, ever practical, started looking at luxury apartments. She even showed me pictures on her phone, laughing about which color scheme would look best. Not once did they ask if I had a place to go. Not once did they hesitate. They had already written me off. Perfect. The next step was to call Margaret. I hadn't told her yet what was happening. I had been too embarrassed. But when I finally picked up the phone, my sister's voice was like a balm to my soul. "They did what?" she exploded after I explained everything. By the end of the call, Margaret was ready to drive over and chew them out herself, but I calmed her down. "No," I said, "not yet. Let them hang themselves a little longer." We agreed on a plan. When the moment was right, when they were fully entangled in their lies and entitlement, we would strike. All I needed to do was wait and watch as the noose they had tied around me slowly, inevitably, slipped around their own necks. And so, as they paraded their betrayal around me, gloating and preening like victors, I smiled politely, nodding at their plans for my future. Inside, I counted down the days until their world came crashing down. Justice was coming, and this time, it had my name written all over it. The first real move came on a Thursday morning. David called a meeting with a real estate agent right at the house. He didn't even bother to ask if I was comfortable with strangers touring my home. No, he just expected me to vanish into the background like an obedient little ghost. I didn't argue. I simply smiled and offered them coffee. The agent was a woman named Karen, a polished, no-nonsense professional who walked briskly through the house, asking sharp questions. David and Lily shadowed her, spouting off details about our property and our plans. I said almost nothing. Instead, I followed quietly, noting every exaggerated claim they made, every lie they told. They spoke as if I were already gone, a mere footnote in the sales pitch. When Karen finally sat down to go over paperwork, she asked the one question that froze both David and Lily mid-sentence. "Can I see the title ownership documents?" David stammered, glancing at Lily. Yeah, we'll get that sorted once the listing is live," he said, flashing a nervous smile. Karen's eyebrows lifted. She wasn't new to the game. She smelled hesitation from a mile away. That was my cue. "Oh," I said, my voice sweet as syrup. "Would you like me to get the deed for you? I have the most current copy upstairs." You could have heard a pin drop. David's face flushed red. Lily's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I stood, taking my time, and went upstairs to retrieve the lockbox. When I returned, I placed the deed gently on the coffee table, sliding it toward Karen. She read it, slowly, carefully, and then she looked up at David and Lily with a puzzled frown. "This house isn't solely owned by you or your mother," she said. "It's co-owned by Margaret Bennett. Any sale would require her full consent." The color drained from David's face. Lily sank back into the couch, visibly wilting. Karen, sensing the tension, quickly gathered her things. "Seems like there are some ownership issues you need to sort out first. I'll leave my card." And with that, she was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. David finally broke it, his voice cracking under the weight of panic. "What the hell is this, Mom?" I leaned back in my chair, studying them both. The fear in their eyes was so raw, so satisfying, it almost made my heart ache. Almost. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said calmly. "I'm not the only owner. Margaret is. You can't sell. What isn't yours?" Lily's hands balled into fists. "You tricked us," she spat. I laughed then, a bitter, hollow sound. "No, darling. You tricked yourselves. You assumed. You plotted. You treated me like trash in my own home." I leaned in, my voice dropping to a razor's edge. "And now? You get nothing." They tried to scramble, of course. Pleading, bargaining, accusing me of betrayal. But I was done playing the fool. Over the next week, with Margaret's help, I took further steps to protect myself. We filed a formal affidavit with the county clerk's office, confirming the joint ownership, ensuring no unauthorized sale attempts could even get off the ground. I spoke to a lawyer too, just to be safe. I also drew up my will, making it crystal clear that neither David nor Lily would inherit a single square inch of the house, or anything else. Let them learn the hard way what happens when you bite the hand that fed you. I wasn't just saving my home. I was reclaiming my dignity. And they? They were left to pick up the shattered pieces of their own greed. It all came to a head, one rainy Sunday afternoon. David and Lily showed up unannounced, banging on the front door like a couple of debt collectors. I opened it slowly, staring at their dripping, furious faces, and for the first time in weeks I felt nothing. No fear. No sadness. Just the solid, immovable calm of someone who already knew how this was going to end. "You need to sign the house over to us," David barked without even a hello. Lily stepped forward, voice trembling with barely controlled rage. "We deserve it after everything we've done for you. We helped raise this house. We lived here. It's as much ours as it is yours." I laughed. Truly laughed this time. The kind that bubbles up from deep in your chest when something is just so absurd you can't even be angry anymore. "You lived here because I let you," I said, my voice sharp as a blade. "You had a home because I sacrificed for it. I cleaned, cooked, worked double shifts alone after your father died to keep this roof over our heads. And this is how you repay me?" They started talking over each other then, throwing accusations, dredging up petty grievances, trying to guilt me into submission. But it was too late for that. I pulled out a folder from the side table and slapped it onto the entryway table between us. Inside were copies of the deed, the updated will, and the affidavit Margaret and I had filed. "This house isn't going anywhere," I said, my voice calm but icy. "And if you try to interfere again, you'll be hearing from my lawyer." David blanched. Lily's mouth twisted in a snarl. "You can't do this," she shrieked. "We're your family." I stared at her for a long moment, then shook my head slowly. "No, Lily. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. Family stands by each other. Family doesn't kick their mother out of her own home like yesterday's garbage." The finality in my voice must have sunk in, because for the first time, they both faltered. They left that day, their shoulders slumped, their anger swallowed by the realization that they had lost. And me? I watched them go, feeling nothing, but a bittersweet sort of peace. It hurt, of course. I won't pretend it didn't. No mother dreams of ending up at war with her own children. But sometimes survival demands hard choices. Sometimes love alone isn't enough. In the weeks that followed, the silence between us stretched into an abyss neither side tried to cross. No calls. No apologies. Just a long, empty quiet that said more than words ever could. But I was okay. Margaret visited often, bringing wine and laughter and the kind of unconditional love I had almost forgotten existed. I repaired the small damages around the house, fixing the loose door hinges David had ignored, repainting the scuffed walls Lily used to complain about. I made it mine again. And every night, as I locked the door and turned off the lights, I smiled. Because I was still standing. Because I hadn't let betrayal define me. Because when the storm came, I hadn't crumbled, I had endured. David and Lily learned the hard way that greed blinds even the ones you love most. They thought they could take everything from me. Instead, they lost me. And that was a price they would pay for the rest of their lives. Justice didn't always come in flashing lights or courtroom battles. Sometimes justice was simply surviving and thriving, while those who wronged you watched from the outside, forever barred from the home they tried to steal. I won, and I would never let anyone make me forget it.